Hi, this is attorney Vernita Williams. In this video, I want to talk to you about the cons of doing a prenup agreement. I've been discussing pros and cons, and I talked about the pros or all of the good things about doing a prenuptial agreement in another video. So in this video, I want to be real honest and address some human nature components which will tell you about the cons, the bad things about doing a prenuptial agreement. Now, a lot of times when I talk to people about prenups, they say, oh, I don't need that. We're so in love, and I couldn't imagine us getting a divorce or things going wrong or whatever. But a prenuptial agreement is a document, it's a plan that discusses how a couple will handle their assets in the event of divorce, in the event of death of one of them, and it also takes a very, very serious look at the impact of divorce or death on third parties, such as the family members of the couple, how they will be impacted. So now I want to tell you about six cons, bad things about prenuptial agreement. Now, number one, when you do a prenuptial agreement, you're looking at what will happen to assets, and in case of death of one of the spouses, when you're doing a prenuptial agreement, that agreement may require you to give up your right to inherit from your spouse's estate. A lot of times when people do a prenuptial agreement, I'm an estate planning attorney. They are coming to me because if one of them were to pass away, they want to make sure their children are not kept from certain assets by the new spouse. For instance, if there's a homestead property and you live in the state of Florida and you get married, your new spouse may not be on the deed to the property, but Florida law says that spouse has an ownership interest in the homestead. Now you might be thinking, well, not so. I had this before I got married to this person, and me and my first husband got this property and I wanted to go to the children. Well, that's all well and good, but there are laws in the state of Florida that says that your new spouse has an ownership interest in your homestead. So a lot of times people want the new spouse to give up a part of their homestead rights. So in doing a prenuptial agreement, sometimes, especially when it comes to estate planning, you're asking the new spouse to give up some things that the law would afford them. So that's a downside that often comes up in prenups. The second thing is you may be asking the new spouse to give up the right to share in business profits. You are thinking, okay, well, I've been running this business 15 years, and I don't think it's right just by virtue of marriage for somebody to all of a sudden think they're entitled to so much. But then as the spouse coming in, you may not be actively going to the business or running the business, but you may be thinking, well, there are other things that I'm doing in this marriage, even if it's entertaining your potential clients, or even if it's making your home life run smoothly so that you can have the mindset to do the business to the level that it'll get a profit. You may be asked to give up your right to share in business profits. That's one of the downsides of having that prenuptial agreement talk. The third thing is a very real thing. Doing a prenuptial agreement could gender a sense of lack of trust. When you're having all these discussions about what about this, or what if this happens in the future, what if I die, I don't want you to get this from my children. Talking about all those things could very well gender a sense of trust, and it might gender a sense in the other party that you're not really willing to share, or you're a little bit selfish or something like that. So that could very well come up, and it often comes up. And sometimes it derails the prenuptial agreement process altogether. I've seen it derail doing the prenuptial agreement many times. The fourth thing is it is hard to determine the future, and what might not be such a big deal right now might end up being a big deal in the future. For instance, if you're marrying somebody and your approach is, oh, I don't really want to be involved in that business. I don't really want anything from that business. I'm good, But in the future, you might think differently, because if over the years you got more and more involved doing things to help make the business work or help your spouse be able to do the business, then in the future what you thought was not a big deal when you did the prenup might turn into a really big deal, because no one can predict the future, how you're going to be positioned, what your role has been. So trying to sort all of that out right now could be challenging. The fifth thing is a low or non-wage earning spouse can't sustain themselves if the agreement limits the spousal support. So let's say you enter into a prenuptial agreement and you agree to have your spousal support limited, and you come into a relationship and you start living at a certain level, but then you end up getting a divorce, and your prenuptial agreement has said, oh, well, if we end up getting a divorce, they're only going to get so much spousal support, no matter how long we've been together. Well, that's hard on the person who agreed to that. That's very, very hard. So a downside is if you enter a prenuptial agreement, you may be limiting yourself in a manner that in the future you will not be so happy that this is what you did to yourself. And the sixth thing among the prenuptial cons or bad things is in the honeymoon stage, which is the stage that you're in usually when you're doing a prenuptial agreement. People may tend to agree to anything. They're so in love and they could not imagine their relationship not working. So the pre-marriage stage is often not the best time for people to think clearly about protecting themselves in the future. So those are some of the cons, some of the downside of doing a prenuptial agreement. I think it deserves a discussion, at least points out how people feel about their assets, about the future, about protecting children from previous relationships, protecting business interests, limiting spousal support. It brings out a whole lot of thought processes, which I think is good to know the thought processes sooner than later. But those are some of the downsides to prenuptial agreement. And if you would like additional information, I'm attorney Vernita Williams. You can give me a call at 786-831-9483. That's 786-831-9483.